Hi, it's Noel Williams. Happy Father's Day. Optimal Health Associates, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I said that right. That's funny. Anyway, so COVID update. I haven't done one in a while because, again, I've de-emphasized doing these a little bit because COVID's over. And if we look back to the spring in March, really in February, I said it's going to be over in April. It was over in April. If you look at the graphs, it was exactly as estimated by anyone with a brain. But there's not a lot of people with the with the brain when it comes to COVID, so that's all okay. So we're down to about 4,000 cases a day in the United States, which is nothing. And again, if we were doing all the testing that for any disease and any infectious entity that we do for COVID, we'd have 4,000 cases of whatever we were checking for. So it's essentially done. The big issue I think we need to talk about, which is, we'll talk a little bit about vaccines, we're going to talk about long haul syndrome, and we're also going to talk about what's going on in the rest of the world. Let's do that first. So the reason it's over in the United States is, A, we got it a lot, or we got it early and it's spread. So that provides, again, this is a very important point, long-term immunity. And for those of you who can't quite understand it, I'll say it really slowly. If you get infected with COVID, you will have long-term immunity between 90 and 95% of the time. If you get vaccinated, it's about 95% of the time. So for any of you who disagree with me, read a journal article and send me a journal article saying that I'm incorrect, because all the journal articles say I'm correct. Plus Fauci's own email said that he thought there was immunity way back last February and March, but he just won't ever say it again, which gets this whole debate about vaccinating people who've already been infected is just idiotic, because it causes increases in side effects from the vaccine. Plus we're wasting vaccines, or we were wasting vaccines, some people who didn't need it, but now that we have plenty of vaccines, so I don't think that's such a big deal. But so the bottom line is, we got a lot of us infected, then we had the best vaccine rollout, and we can thank both the people during the Trump administration and during the Biden administration, either way, for getting that done. Let's not pick one side or the other on that. I think both people were involved. So that's great. So we're pretty much done. So since we're done, is there a lot of reasons to have restrictions? No, and again, just to emphasize this again, if you're wearing a mask outside, again, more power to you, but remember, what's the best defense against COVID? Sunlight, so you're actually increasing your risk for getting it. Plus they don't work anyway, which is what the data has shown. So again, if you're going to wear a mask, it's fine. It's just useless, and you're unfortunately bought into the marketing from the powers that be. Number two, if you are wearing a mask, don't wear it in your car when you're by yourself. I see that all the time, and I'm like, oh my God, you don't need to do that. But again, if you want to, it's fine. It's just, again, we want normalization, normal. The safest place you can be is on an airplane, because they recirculate the air. So again, all these restrictions on airplanes need to go away. And when they hand you that wipe, just ignore it, because we've already talked about the fact that the wipe doesn't do anything. So again, just get the vaccine if you believe that it will be helpful for you. I always encourage everyone to get the vaccine who's at risk or older. I don't encourage the vaccine for anyone younger who's healthy. I want everyone on vitamins. The pediatric data I don't think is reassuring at all. I would not want one of my children to get a vaccine to get significant heart damage when they're going to be essentially immune or unaffected by the virus over 99% of the time. So I'm an outlier on that, but I'm a science person, not a reactionary big pharma person. So that's how it goes. You're looking at me.
Well, I have one thing with that. Because some people know is that we have 4 kids of all different ages.
So we'll break them down into each one. So Noel's 30, he's a dentist, he got COVID. Did he get the vaccine? Yes, it was totally stupid, but he wanted to do that for his patients. He had antibodies, we knew that, but he said, I need to do it for my patients. So he did, he got both sets. Calvin has some blood clotting issues that are mild, but we didn't want him to get COVID. He's 28. He wanted to get it so he could not have to wear a mask anywhere. So he ended up getting the Johnson & Johnson, but he preloaded with baby aspirin for a week before and a week after, I hope. hope he did. He said he kind of did. Hugo, who was 19, got the vaccine even though he had antibodies, but that was a personal choice again for him because he knew his school was going to require it, and he got it, and then they did require it. So he preloaded with baby aspirin for a week before and a week after. Both times he got the Pfizer, and again, he's going with the flow, and that's one of the things, you know, unfortunately you have to do in the United States to not have to wear a mask. And again, I'm not going to go into all of that. It's just my children made the choices they wanted to make. I got the vaccine. I had multiple exposures. I never got infected. It probably some combination of my immune system's ratcheted up because I take so many vitamins and supplements. I'm up to date on my tetanus, I'm up on my pertussis, and my measles, mumps, and rubella, which gives cross immunity. I may be cross immune from coronaviruses in the past, but I decided for me personally that one, I wanted to set an example that I believed in the vaccine, because I do believe the Pfizer vaccine was very safe and the Moderna vaccine was very safe. Again, these are all personal choices. But my general gestalt is, if you're someone who's at risk, meaning you're over 40, you can get sicker with it. You have clotting disorders, you're obese, you're diabetic, you're nutritionally poor, you should get the vaccine. Now, if you're super healthy and 23, COVID's not as important to you, but there's still risk, and you have to just decide where you fall into that. And I think it's a personal decision. You can get your DTaP and make sure your measles, mumps, and rubella's caught up, and take your supplements. But that's, again, a personal choice. I don't think mandates are what the U.S. should be about. I don't think that's antithetical to our country, but again, that's all been thrown out in the woke society. If we don't do exactly what the media says, we're bad people, but blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of then the US. So what's going on in the rest of the world? So they didn't get the virus as much as we did, and they didn't get the vaccine out like we did, excluding China, big surprise. And so they're having big case upticks still in India and I think Venezuela. Or Brazil, sorry, it's Brazil. And so they're gonna kind of be in a disastrous situation for a while, but that's gonna pass eventually. If you look at Canada, I really think they did something that was much smarter than most countries. Trudeau said, let's just get everyone one vaccine. And so they're at like 62% have gotten one vaccine, and only 13% have gotten two. But the bottom line is, if you read the papers, and I always want to make sure I'm clear about this, you actually have to read the paper and look at the statistics if you're someone listening to me who's sciencey or medical, before you criticize me. Because if you can read the paper on the Moderna or the Johnson & Johnson, you'll see the immunity rate is essentially with just one, so for the vast majority of people. But so mass vaccination of a population with one and then going back and getting two to finish up makes sense, but I think we should have only done one of the Pfizer and one of the Moderna anyway because of the data. But you know, again, I'm always in left field on this stuff. So Canada is in this situation now where Trudeau won't open the country, so for all of us who want to go there, it's a little bit of a problem, plus it's killing their economy. But again, I'm not the decision maker for those types of issues, but right now Canada's still closed. I don't know if they'll open till next fall at the rate they're going. Europe is opening up, especially if you're vaccinated. Mexico's the same. You know, I guess my issue with going to like South America or anywhere where there's a big outbreak of COVID, if you're vaccinated, is that if you have some other health problem while you're there, they're not going to be able to attend to you. You are the last person of importance in that country. If you're an American who's flown to Brazil and gets in a car accident and needs emergency surgery when they're overwhelmed with COVID patients. So again, going to hot spots of COVID infection is not a good move from a common sense point of view. So be very careful with your travel, where you travel. Then what was the third thing I was going to talk about? I already forgot. Just goes to show you I'm getting old. U.S. vaccines, rest of the world. So by the fall, we're going to be in pretty good shape. And remember, the southern hemisphere, it's turning into winter, so this is when they're going to get their big pop, and then it will be pretty much over because everyone will have gotten it, and we'll be done. And then all these different variants, they're all covered by the vaccine, and they're all covered by the prior infections. The reinfection rate really runs 5 to 10% with, again, as I've gone over 1,000 times now, you're either asymptomatic when you get infected 90% of the time, or you barely are noticeably infected 99% of the time. So it's a teeny tiny group that actually get sick again. So again, just take your vitamins and do your stuff, but we got to let the world go on. So that's COVID. I mean, that's the COVID synthesis. I mean, we're coming to an end. I can talk a little bit if you want. Well, no one's asking me, so I'm just talking about it. The lab theory, I started talking about that last March, that it was from the Wuhan lab because, I mean, duh. It's a Wuhan. As John Stewart said, it was, when you have someone that liberal and out there who's been so critical of everything, someone like I've said, going, well, hold on, it was the Wuhan coronavirus lab, and they were doing coronavirus gain of function tests, and it could have escaped from there. That makes sense. Yeah, it made sense, and all the documentation makes sense. And again, it's all circumstantial, but the big thing is the smoking gun of Fauci, and then all the other doctors, the big six, the guy from England, the NIH guy who was there, and then several others who all banded together to block any research on it. And the thank you email from the guy in Wuhan to Fauci saying, thanks for shutting this down before anyone got into it. Well, it's pretty obvious that it was from Wuhan, but we're never going to know, other than the fact that there's no biologic plausible source, and the HIV mutation on it is incredible. That, okay, how do you get just the infectious part of HIV without any of the other genomic RNA sequence? I don't know. It's random luck, like 1 in quadrillions or something. So anyway, the lab theory will be what it will be, but it's not going to matter because the Chinese aren't going to ever admit it, and our government's never going to push for clarity on it. So, and if you ever wonder why, it's corporate interests, because they make so much money. You look at Nike, or you look at the NBA and how they handle things with China, or the guy from Fast and Furious who inadvertently said that Taiwan was a country, and then he had to grovel on Chinese national TV. I mean, how sad is that? But anyway, so that's why we're never going to make the Chinese admit or force a conclusion on it. So that's about it on Corona. Any questions, comments, Kim? Anything I need to bring up? We're going to start talking about some other stuff, which I keep on mentioning. I've actually been working, and so I need to start explaining some of the new things we're doing. We're doing some stuff with ozonation, really interesting things with using O3 to stimulate and regenerate and restore bodily functions or cellular functions. We're still using, this is really funny, stem cell derivatives. I'm supposed to say umbilical cord tissue, minimally manipulated mesenchymal stem cell derived nanoparticles containing growth factors and cytokines, also known as stem cell derivatives for things. So a lot of interesting things for health and wellness at the practice, besides just doing all the hormones and all the internal medicine and all the other stuff we do. We've had a lot of, one thing we are noticing is we see a lot of cancer patients. We had 3 new cancers last week that unfortunately we diagnosed, and we're averaging at least almost 1 a week, sometimes 2 a week. And some of that's just delay in care for people who, haven't come in, or they saw someone else and they've been feeling lousy, then we get them. And so just get your screening stuff done. If you're a girl, get your mammogram and get your pap smear every year. Don't believe the baloney about every other year, every third year. That is all based on saving money. It's not based on best outcome. I mean, every other year is probably fine, but going to every third year, And if you've ever had an abnormal pap smear with high-risk HPV, you're a high-risk patient forever. You're not a low-risk patient, so you get them every year, and that's what I'm seeing. We are seeing people who their doctors, they have an abnormal pap smear and they have high risk HPV or mild dysplasia or something, it clears, and then the doctor tells them, or the nurse practitioner or the PA, oh, you can go to every 3 years or every 5 years. You're now fine. No, the virus persists. So you don't go to every 3rd year or 5th year. You stay every year, please, because that's, I don't want to give anything away or about patients, but we're seeing some disasters because of that, and it's totally unnecessary. So just get your screening stuff, your colonoscopy. If you're a guy, get your PSA, get your colonoscopy, and follow up on your screening things. So thank you. Have a wonderful Father's Day and a great week, and try to stay cool in Oklahoma.